You're 20 years old at this point.
Yes.
When I hear you say that one of the greatest recording engineers ever has taken you under his wing, what do you think it was about you that made him do that?
I was a persistent asshole.
You were. In the same way that you were getting
I wanted
hired.
it so much that honestly, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. But I was so persistent on staying in that environment and just being attracted to, once that one door opens, it's like, oh, I want to stay here. And where does that door go?
Mhm.
Like, it was just that persistence. And then also, once that door opens, even if you're unfamiliar, now do your homework too. Make sure that you're not going to mess anything up. Like, shut up and listen and learn everything and know what's there and then make your moves when you can. I mean, for instance, my greatest thing at Capitol, in fact, what probably got me in front of Al more than anything was, I had made friends with the guys in the shop and all of that, but I wasn't an engineer. I was an intern. They didn't even like me in the actual studios at that time early on. But the one thing I recognized was at the time, there were a lot of things that were very dirty, unorganized, out of calibration. And, from the shop, I could see things that were coming back unnecessarily because literally knobs were just not screwed on correctly to the various outboard gear and stuff like that. And so I realized the one thing that all the union people and the employees weren't doing, which was cleaning. Who wants to do that? And, they also have a corporate custodial staff there for trash cans maybe, but the custodial staff isn't going to touch the equipment because they know it might mess something up. And so, well, what goes to waste? And immediately in my head, the thing that made me in like Flynn with everyone was I just go in and literally that whole summer I took off every single knob on a Neve VR,
And clean
every single outboard gear. It was like a detail shop. All I was doing was cleaning. I wasn't changing anything. Whenever the studio was down for a few hours, I'd work one channel at a time or one piece of gear at a time. I'd clean it. I'd put it in tones. I'd recalibrate the knobs to where zeroing unity was actually zeroing unity. And the engineers and there was a large crew there. So you can imagine that there were people who didn't like the fact that the unpaid intern was touching things. And it was like their job being infringed. But they'd come in and they'd realize what I was doing. And the thing that was hilarious about, I found their Achilles heel because they'd come in like all pissed off and they'd see what I'm doing. And then they'd realize, shit, well, that really needs to be done. And I really don't want to do it. I'm just going to back out of here and pretend like this didn't happen.
and let him do his thing.
And then Al Schmidt came back from vacation and was like, who are you? And he's looking at, and I explained, I was like, oh, honored to re-meet you because on that tour I got to meet him. But he would have never remembered that.
Right.
I mean, it was so brief.
Right.
And he's looking at, he's like, well, what are you doing? And at that time I was working on the Fairchild recalibrate. Like I had already detailed everything, like cleaned all the pots and everything looks like gold and I'm putting on the knob and Al comes in and literally I've got a 1K tone going through the board and into there and I'm like redoing the meter. I was like, well, sir, I've just kind of taken it upon myself because no one knows what to do with me to clean the whole place. And by the way, absolutely everything here was completely out of calibration. Not one knob turned to the right value. And it's all fucked up.
Whoa.
And I'm like, so I'm putting everything where it's supposed to. And Al was like, come with me.
Whoa. And that was it. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
He was just like, and then from that point on, it was like I was allowed to sit in. Like the first few things, it was just sitting in on his sessions, which of course were always the best ones. By that time, by the way, Steve worked or still does work for Capital. He would assist Al, but he and I were always on good terms, and Steve actually would even help me out with. He probably was the one who even showed me how to patch in the tone to what I was doing while I was OCDing over everything. And Steve was always cool, so it was like a very natural progression because then it became, it was the team was always Al and Steve, and then I was just invited in on the party, and that was my greatest learning. That was where I learned everything from the start, and certainly an experience I'll never forget.
Love it. Love it.
Both of them, I know, have already forgotten. But, it was a short amount of time. And for them, they were already doing a million things by that time. But for me, it was definitely an impression.